Well, good evening and welcome to the June 20th work study session for the Tempe City Council here in the Harry E. Mitchell Government Center. Um, First item on our agenda is a lifetime of service recognition for Lisa Lloyd. I'm going to come down and read something, and give me 1 second. Come on down, Lisa. You're already coming down. Wait, are you trying to leave?
July 24th.
July what?
24th.
Okay. All righty. Well, in case you don't know, this is Lisa Lloyd. And Lisa is a remarkable person, like all of our employees for our team. But let me give you some points of some of the stuff that Lisa has done over the years to help with the projects come to fruition in Tempe. And if I could ask Garen Eccles, if you can come on down, he's with Sunk Construction. Garen, come on down, stand right by Lisa if you could. And being the mayor, we get to do some pretty cool things. Look at this. Mayor, I get to do some pretty fun and cool things, and one is issue a proclamation, and I do have one for you, Lisa. On August 23rd, 1993, Lisa Lloyd began her career with the city of Tempe and has since served our community for more than 25 years, using her incredible, vast knowledge of Tempe's development system to help people with projects large and small. And whereas Lisa has worked as a permit technician, a plans examiner for planning, and an intern permit center supervisor, a development project coordinator, and finally finished her career as a lead for the new project assistance team. Whereas Lisa has been the direct and single point of contact for many customers as they navigate the process for both new construction as well as remodeling, beginning with the first plan submitted through the certificate of occupancy. Lisa's work has made buildings in the city of Tempe safer and more sustainable. Her work has contributed to the creative and beautiful built environment throughout our entire community and has helped make Tempe a highly desirable location to live, work, play, as well as learn. Whereas Lisa has affected Tempe's skyline forever with her involvement on projects such as the West 6, Marina Heights, the Union, and Hayden Ferry Lakeside, her work on Mirabella and the Ani Hotel will contribute to the success of those projects, even though they were open after she has retired. Now, whereas Lisa is known as the face of Tempe, an ambassador for developers, designers, and contractors, and Tempe residents, and Tempe's workforce, and builders and developers will miss Lisa's cheerful, always smiling, and her incredible knowledge. Now, therefore, I, Mark Mitchell, Mayor of Tempe, Arizona, do hereby declare as June 20th, 2019, as Lisa Lloyd Lifetime of Service Recognition Day in Tempe, Arizona. Let's give Lisa a round of applause. You will be missed. Thank you, Lisa, and thank you, Garen and Son.
Thank you, Mr. Just to echo what you said about Lisa, there are only a very few employees here at the city who deserve that level of recognition, and Lisa is most certainly one of them. We're going to miss her. We wish her all the best in retirement, and she truly is one of those unsung heroes that has made Tempe the great community that it is over her 25 plus years here. without her contributions, we would not be the kind of community that we are. And we owe it to Lisa, so thank you so much.
Jennifer, are you on the phone? We have with us on the phone, we have Councilman Joe Navarro. Are you there?
Yeah, I'm here, Mayor.
Jennifer?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay. They are participating via phone. The next item on our agenda is a call to the audience for the issue review session and committee of the whole items. Audience members do have up to 3 minutes to address the city council. If you'd like to speak on an item, please fill out a speaker's card which is located in the back of the council chambers, fill it out, and when it's your turn, I will call you when it's your turn. I do have some cards. We have Jeff. And then Diane Post on deck, and then after that, please state your name and place of residence for the record.
Hi, I'm Jeff Castlake, and I reside at 1621 South Parkside Drive, and I'm speaking about item 3B, the Alameda Streetscape Project. I want to call out something that I think is probably buried in the notes. The owner of the property, of the property just west of Wilson and the Alameda alignment, I think it's Siva Warehouse and Distributing at the moment, has asked that the improvement to the parking lot easement be separated with the curbing and landscaping. That's something that is not in the present design plans, but was called up in the last meeting late last year or something over at Sunt. The other couple of things that I appreciate about Alameda is it's improving the pavement quality between Hardy and Priest. The industrial section there with all the trucks, it's pretty rough. The couple of pieces that the project is missing are the connections across the railroad tracks and obviously across I-10. I think there were budgetary constraints, and the railroad tracks was thrown in with the north-south spur path, which I think, again, because of budgetary constraints, has been pushed out of this capital improvement project period, 3-year, 5-year, whatever that is, into the next one. And then we're waiting for ADOT and the spine, which is supposed to start next year, I believe, for the bridge at Alameda. The rest of the project we're pretty much looking forward to. So thank you for that.
You're welcome. Thank you. Next, Ms. Diane Post. Welcome.
I'm Diane Post. I'm an attorney, and I live in that city over there, Phoenix. And I'm on the steering committee for the ERA task force. And for the last 3 years, we have seriously been working to try to get the Equal Rights Amendment passed in Arizona. 37 states have passed it. We need one more. What does it say? It says, quote, equality of rights under the law shall not be denied or abridged by the United States or by any state on account of sex. What's not to like? 80% of the people in the United States think it's passed. It did not. Some people think it's not needed. Without the ERA, the Constitution does not explicitly guarantee that the rights of half of its citizens are protected. The Equal Protection Clause of the Constitutional 14th Amendment has never been interpreted to grant equal rights on the basis of sex. It's about race, color, and national origin. Women and men have won cases under the 14th Amendment based on equal protection and due process violations, but it does not explicitly protect women. If it did, we would not have needed the 19th Amendment to vote after the 14th Amendment was passed. The ERA would provide a clear judicial standard for deciding cases of sexual discrimination. Right now, the standard is intermediate scrutiny, which there's only one class in there, and that's us. So it would elevate it to strict scrutiny, and we would have laws that are more likely to protect women. The ERA will provide a strong legal defense against a rollback of the significant improvements and advancements that we have made in women's rights since the mid-20th century. What impact will it have? Countries that have higher equality indexes have fewer divorces in their family. So if you support the family, you would support the ERA. The 22 states in the United States that have state ERAs have fewer abortions per capita. So if you were opposed to abortion, you would support the ERA. The ERA has enjoyed massive public support for decades. from 88 to 96%, which is why so many people think it already passed. I actually was the chair of the ERA task force in 1980, and here I am back again in 19, still doing it. So when the history books are written, which side of that equality divide do we want to be on? I think we all know we want to be on the correct side. So I urge you to pass the Equal Rights Amendment resolution asking the legislature to do what is not only right and legally good, but in the will of the people. Thank you.
Thank you, Diane. Next, David Rice.
David Rice, 212 West Knight Lane. I'm speaking in regards to the large volume water user topic tonight. It looks like you're considering implementing a pilot program to reduce water rates of the Tier 5 users. I guess I wish you would just consider changing the Tier 5 water rate instead of implementing a program to lower the cost for certain users of that tier level. You used to have 4 tiers, maybe 2 years ago, and then you moved to 5 tiers. And it seems like what you're doing is, for a select few people, changing it such that they only have to pay 4 tiers, with the 5th tier users paying the 4th tier rate. So from the presentation that's going to be presented, it seems like most of the savings that might happen with water conservation people coming out to people's residences is the savings is due to reduced water use, not the actual rate that's being charged those users. In terms of just being transparent in what people are paying, it seems like it would be nicer if you just lowered the 5th tier water rate if you feel that it is not equitable. And that's what it seems like is being implied in the presentation. Thanks.
Thank you. That's all the cards that I have. Is there anyone else in the audience wishing to address us? Could you please get my attention? Seeing none, I'll close that portion. Next item is our issue review session items, the exploring of the East Valley Regional Solutions to Homelessness. If we could
Thank you,
get
Mr. Mayor,
Andrew.
members of council, I appreciate that. Paul Bentley and Nikki Stevens are coming up to the dais as well to assist in the presentation. Just briefly, since October of 2017, Tempe has initiated a series of meetings with our partners in the East Valley. I initiated it at the city manager's level to speak with the other jurisdictions in our area about the sort of the collective issues that we've all been having regarding homelessness, and in particular the rise of homelessness within our respective jurisdictions. And you know, we had a series of focused discussions on topics ranging from approaches for housing, enforcement, approaches involving services, et cetera. The culmination of that conversation over these multiple meetings is a resolution that creates sort of a joint statement of purpose for all of these various jurisdictions to start to have more focused discussions about solutions. This resolution does not bind any of the jurisdictions, including Tempe, to a specific solution, nor does it encumber any funds. It simply says that those of us who have been engaged in these conversations now have the express authority to have conversations about the next steps, thinking about the gaps in whatever it may be that we have gaps in for addressing homelessness. As you know, one of council's strategic performance measures that has been adopted is an end to homelessness, a functional zero within the city of Tempe. And I think it's safe to say that the other jurisdictions that we're working with share similar, if not the same, goals. And in knowing that, and knowing that homelessness is not an issue that respects political borders, and that no one of these jurisdictions has the capacity to carry the entire burden of all of the types of potential solutions, we thought it was worthwhile to look at collaborative solutions, to work regionally. In fact, you know, our Maricopa Association of Governments has a continuum of care board, and that board made up of the various jurisdictions that are part of MAG look at homeless solutions from a regional perspective. And I'm pleased to say that MAG has been a contributing part of all of these discussions that we've had since October of 2017. And so we are at this place where we feel it is necessary to get the various elected bodies of the jurisdictions together to affirm that we're on the right path and that our efforts can now begin to start talking about possible solutions. And that would include things like resource allocation throughout the East Valley region. And again, if these continuing more focused discussions result in any sort of recommendations for contributions in terms of resources, that would be a further discussion that we would then bring back to this council and to the respective councils of the cities and towns that would sign on to this resolution to have that further discussion. It would require things potentially like intergovernmental agreements and the like. So there's a lot of other hoops that still need to be crossed before we can actually commit to what those solutions would be. But this is an important step, as I said before. And when I talk about those other jurisdictions, I'm talking about specifically Apache Junction, Chandler, Gilbert, Mesa, Scottsdale, Phoenix, Maricopa County. All of those jurisdictions at some point will be bringing this resolution forward to their governing bodies. As in many things, Tempe is the first. We are hopeful with your consensus that we can bring this resolution forward next Thursday at the regular council meeting on June 27th. In addition, although we will be the first, hopefully, depending on consensus tonight, to bring it forward for consideration and approval, the Maricopa County Continuum of Care Board is meeting this coming Monday, June 24th, to discuss and to provide their support, hopefully, to this cause. And like I said, they've been participating since the beginning. So I'm here, as well as Paul Bentley and Nikki Stevens, to answer any questions you have about our efforts we've made thus far and about the resolution. Thank you.
Thank you. And Andrew, I want to first, I think this is a tremendous issue to move forward. I fully support the resolution that's before us. And I want to thank you, Andrew, for your leadership on this, the East Valley City Managers Working Group. And it means a lot to us personally as a council, but as a city to be more involved. And, you know, we have many strategies to help in homelessness. And this is one step. And we cannot do this by ourselves. It's going to take many different cities. Unfortunately, the homeless population is a transient population that moves from one city to another city. And we have many avenues, from the Hope Outreach Team to our agency review funding to the local nonprofits. We have housing programs. But again, we cannot do this without everyone's hope. And being the incoming chair of Maricopa of MAG that Andrew mentioned, I'm going to really push this as much as I can as a new chair of MAG to really see how we can really work together regionally with our councils amongst the cities that Andrew mentioned. And I just think I really want to thank you, Andrew, for the leadership that you provided with the Managers Working Group. Councilmember Keating?
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I just want to kind of echo some of what the mayor said. I don't think you mentioned it, but this is something that came out of the Housing First Working Group, and it's definitely it was a Tempe initiative, you know, and you were one to step up and organize this, and obviously it's something that's very needed not only in Tempe but in our region. As you point out, homelessness doesn't confine itself to any sort of political boundaries, and it's a region that we're seeing that's particularly hard hit by the issue. So I'm very pleased that we've come back with this resolution, and be happy to support it next week. I hope once it passes, we can start, you know, looking at how to partner with our neighboring cities on actionable solutions and programs and ways to mitigate the negative effects and you know, bring homelessness down to zero in the city of Tempe. So thank you, Andrew and staff, for the work that you've done on this.
Vice Mayor Cubey?
Andrew, thanks for leading the Valley on this issue, and thank you, Councilmember Keating, for your leadership on the working group, as well as Councilmember Navarro. And one of the real concerns we had after reviewing a lot of our housing policies was the need for permanent supportive housing, wraparound services. And so although this is the first step and we need to get beyond this, I know there have been extended discussions with the region about that one aspect, right? About perhaps looking at even specific pieces of land and specific opportunities that might be out there to have some regional housing that we brought up not too far into the future. I hope there is that discussion has happened sort of not independently but alongside this resolution, right?
Vice Mayor Kiwi, that's correct. Those kind of discussions would be and have been some of the things that those human services representatives from the various jurisdictions have had discussions. And one of the things that led to us getting to the point where we wanted to make sure that we had direction and support at the council level was, as we began to look at where potential gaps in the sorts of things that you're talking about existed in the region, that we want to make sure that we had that support before we go forward and actually talk about what that looks like, what the costs of those sorts of solutions might be, and to have those more in-depth discussions with a fully informed council beforehand.
Thank you. Just want to mention that Wells Fargo has just committed $1 billion nationally, but they have a strong presence in Arizona looking at homelessness and affordable housing solutions, and that might be a possible project partner. But I really appreciate you taking this ball and kicking it forward. I don't usually do the sports analogies. I better stop. But thanks so much to staff, and I'll definitely be supporting this resolution. And look, I'm very eager to see what Housing First projects will come out of it. Thank you.
Is everyone else okay with this resolution moving forward? Jennifer, Councilman Navarro?
Yes, yes, I'm very supportive of this resolution moving forward.
All right.
Yes, Mayor, I think it's great. Just briefly, I just want to say thank you to our city manager. I mean, this is just a huge step in the right direction. I know that other council members, including me, are taking various steps at, trying to help and try to resolve and solve homelessness as it is a regional issue, so to speak. And you said it, Mayor. I think MAG is doing great steps in trying to handle this, but I just want to tell you thank you for your efforts also on that, and then thank you, Andrew, for what you've been doing. Appreciate it.
Okay. With that, I want to thank the staff again, Paul, Nikki, and team, and Andrew for your leadership.
Thank you.
And we move this resolution forward to the next council agenda.
Appreciate that. And just as something you alluded to, Mayor, the good efforts, the great efforts of our human services staff and really collaborating with all the departments of the city for all the things that we're currently doing for homelessness that you're aware of are going to continue. This is a discussion that brings it to the next level of the region. So, it's not an either or situation. We're going to continue to bring all the resources that we have to bear on this issue. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Next item on our agenda is our Alameda Drive Bicycle Pedestrian Streetscape Project. I think Shelley and Bonnie are coming on down. All righty.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Shelley Seiler, Deputy Engineering and Transportation Director, and with me tonight is Bonnie Richardson, Principal Planner, and we're here to give you a quick update on the Alameda Drive Bicycle and Pedestrian Streetscape Project. Good evening.
Oh, I'm sorry, forget the button. We're here to present our planning process through 60% design on Alameda Streetscape, and also ask you for your comments and whether you believe we should move forward to 100% and move this project on to implementation. We are working both with the quality of life and performance measures as well as sustainable growth and development. And I will say we also touch on many other performance measures related to sustainability, quality of life, and walkable 20-minute city. A short background, the purpose is to really make Alameda a bike boulevard and walkable corridor. And in doing that, we will eventually connect both with Mesa as well as Phoenix. Alameda is this project started in 2015 and went out to the public. We gathered data and discussed it, sought input, and a preferred alternative was developed. We used that preferred alternative to pursue federal funding. Alameda is a good choice of streets for accomplishing this pedestrian bicycle connectivity because we have very low volume in terms of traffic. It is regional by connecting both cities, and it is a non-continuous vehicular route. So with that in mind, it then allows us to have more pedestrian and bicycle alternatives. And I'll also mention here that this is also important in the development of the Hardy Broadmoor Revitalization Innovation Hub. So by improving this street, we're also adding to that project. So as was mentioned earlier, we do have portions of this that are related to other projects. The I-10 pedestrian bicycle overpass is exciting because that's what's really going to get us connected with Phoenix. It will take about 3 years to construct once they've finished design. Design should be done in the next year to 18 months. They do have the funding allocated, so I believe this will go forward just as soon as they can address the design. Also is our north-south pathway along the railroad. In the process of working on that, we decided to take care of improving the bicycle path across it at the same time as we're dealing with the north-south path. So we have one group working with the railroad on these improvements. Also related to the property where the bike path goes through an existing parking area, we did speak a lot to to properties on both sides of the railroad. That property is going to be handled as well with the railroad improvements in the north-south corridor. So given the preferred alternative, we have Tempe Transit Funds, $109,718, and a total of $1.69 million to be able to complete this 3 miles of improvements. Looked at constraints, opportunities, and challenges, and I will mention that a lot of the people that participated in this effort were not involved with the first planning efforts. So it was a matter of bringing up to speed those who had been involved and also introducing the project. We worked with 4 neighborhoods, stakeholders, property owners, and we also attempted to look at other planning processes so that we were adhering to those area plans. So I think it's important to mention the sustainability options we're looking at. We are providing what we call a bulb out along Alameda. That allows us to provide trees and also use low impact development to absorb stormwater from the street to also nurture what's planted. Our challenges were that we have multiple types of users on both sides of the project. Heavily residential on the east end. The other side is growing as a community. We have industrial as well as warehouse, lots of trucks. Constraints also include parking and so many utilities that are under Alameda. Here's a summary of our public input opportunities. Laura Keifetz and I worked carefully with the neighbors who had concerns so that everyone would be happy with the ultimate solution. So there are 6 different areas that we addressed. I'm going to go quickly through the sections here. So it is in your packet and it is online for those who wanted to study it further. Important is that we had a very wide open street all along, and we're providing buffered bike lanes as well as doing some on-street improvements in sidewalks where they don't exist. We have 2 areas of landscape. This one near Fountainhead, we have several landscape medians that will enhance that area and help to slow traffic. On the very wide curb-to-curb, we are careful to look at the truck traffic so that they can still access their facilities. And the only thing we've really removed from the street in some areas is the center turn lane. So all of our right turn, left turn movements are still as they were. So from the railroad to Mill Avenue is where we were able to look at landscaping to shade bike lanes as well as sidewalks and cool that residential area. We do have the bulb outs, and here you can see with that wide street, we have plenty of room to have parking planters. They're the size of one parking space, so 8 feet by 18 feet. And we made sure that wherever they were placed, the residents adjacent to them have approved are doing that. From Mill to College, we had a different alternative because we have no parking on the north side. We had a little more room to work with, and we were actually able to provide a landscape strip with more trees and allow people to have full parking. This is just a glimpse at how that street works with where the landscaping will run. And College to Rural is where we have the majority of the bulb outs. So in addition to the north-south spur, we are also ready to go forward and complete our construction documents, hopefully by the end of August. And we're in the direction of starting construction in January 2020, and also then completing it within the year. So I'm happy to answer any questions or concerns.
First, thank you, Bonnie, and thank you to you and your staff for really reaching out. You saw the list of all the neighborhood meetings with the neighborhoods to really make sure everyone is happy. I mean, a lot of times not everyone's going to be happy, but I think we really addressed, and I've heard from some residents along the Alameda corridor, how great they interacted with the city. I mean, you listened to them. So I want to thank you guys for that as well. And I think it's, you know, this really is a great opportunity because it fits in line with other projects that we have, like Vision Zero. We have other projects regarding traffic mitigation and landscaping. So I think this is a really tremendous project for our residents and in the Alameda corridor. And I think this is fantastic, especially when you get the feedback that we got from the residents.
Thanks.
Vice Mayor
Mr.
Keegan?
Mayor?
Hang on, Jennifer, go ahead.
Yes, I want to echo your thoughts, Mr. Mayor, and also it's just so good to see such public outreach to the community and members, and thanks for conducting the multiple public outreach. This seems like a model for other projects as we move forward to include the neighborhoods. I mean, the more we include our residents for these processes, the better. And also, I want to hats off to Bonnie Richardson and Shelley Seiler for your foresight and planning regarding this project.
Vice Mayor Kuby?
Bonnie, you've led us through so many public planning processes, and you do it so beautifully, so well. And Shelley, thank you so much for your leadership. This is a really important project, and not just because I live around the corner from Alameda and College. I very much appreciate the street calming aspects. I know that Alameda, especially from rural to College, is a speedway. And that's one of the reasons Gail Shanks from Changing Hands Bookstore, she lives on that street, got involved, and she convened a public meeting or two, I believe. And I think there were a total of 7. I went to a number of them, and Laura Kaifes just did an amazing job reaching out to neighbors. And then there were neighbors that reached out to neighbors. Paul Hubble, who's a Brentwood Cavalier, he actually found out the owners of some of the houses, I wouldn't say absentee landlords, but that don't live in the homes. And he actually traveled to Scottsdale to get their approval and show their reviews of the streets. And so there was an amazing engagement beyond just the meetings, but during the course of the meetings too. So it was really a model project. I posted about Facebook, kind of expecting people to say rah rah, and of course in Facebook you can hear some criticisms. There was one really strong criticism from a resident in Phoenix who asked why we weren't putting the bike lanes immediately off the curb, so you'd have the bike lane and then the parking and then the street. Can you explain, just for the record, why that wasn't probably a good design idea?
Sure. We did look at that. It makes sense to think that you can separate traffic and the bike lane. However, when we start to look at turning movements onto Alameda and off where we have to merge with traffic, we ran into problems. Also, we have so many driveways along that area. We wanted residents to know where to expect the bicyclists to be. And so there was only one area where we might have been able to do this. And we felt for safety reasons it was better to keep what's expected in terms of the bike lane. I think in future projects we'll always look to see if we can do that. But we did take in comments from bicyclists who use the street as well as the neighbors.
And it's important that there'll be an addition of trees along Alameda, so it's really will be more of a garden street and much more hospitable to walking and dog walking. I know there was concerns about parking. Neighbors thought they might lose their opportunities to park in front of their houses, but you did a parking study to show that actually there's a lot of capacity, and that capacity remains with the new design. So I appreciate you allaying those concerns. And Laura Kaifes, I mean, you did an amazing job at those meetings. I was witnessing it. So I want to thank you so much. I can't wait until January 2020 when we expect the process will begin construction.
Yes, we hope so.
Thank you so much.
Thank
Anybody
you.
else?
You know what,
Councilmember Redondo Savage.
Bonnie, I just want to say, you know, you're the ultimate professional, so thank you so much for what you do and your leadership and taking it together. And Shelley and Laura, I know it does take a team, and we really have some of the best employees in the city of Tempe that really, truly care about this community. And I think you can tell from the 4 years of work that's gone to this date, how much you really care, and it really shows in the work. So thank you so much for that. I think we're all looking forward to a really cool project. I just hope it doesn't take as long as like the Broadway Road one did.
And this is a lot longer than the Broadway Road.
Yeah.
Well, just to wrap up, I think there's consensus or move forward, but I have to tell you, not only do we have the great team that helped do the outreach and get our citizens engaged, but it's just another sign that we're investing in our infrastructure for other means of transportation for our residents to be truly multimodal, to move around our community. And the proof is in the pudding. I mean, we are actually doing it. We're walking the walk. So thank you so much. Anyone else have any comments? Ms. Chin, Joel, thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right, next item. Mr. Jones, or no, who's coming up? Mr. Dunsing, all right. We have the WaterSmart Customer Portal and Advanced Metering Infrastructure. It's actually, it sounds sounds more tedious than it really is. It's actually a cool feature. And we'll explain that. We lead in a lot of things, but this is really exciting.
Great, Mayor, members of the council, good afternoon. I'm joined here on my immediate left by Gretchen Baumgardner, Water Resources Manager, and she's responsible for City of Tempe's conservation program. To my far left is Miss Tina Sleeper, Program Coordinator, and she will take you through the actual WaterSmart app. And you'll find very quickly she's very knowledgeable about the functions and the program in general. This afternoon, we're here to give you just a brief update on the advanced metering infrastructure, commonly known as the smart meters and the ability to collect water usage from these smart meters. More importantly, we're here to highlight the information that we're able to gather from these smart meters and in turn provide that to the City of Tempe utility customers. A little bit of background: in June 2016, there were contracts approved to kick off the AMI project. I'm pleased to report that we're 3 years later and the AMI infrastructure is installed, it's functioning, and as of today there's approximately 43,500 customers that have access to their water consumption information. A year later, June 2017, a contract was approved for the WaterSmart software application. And again, this is to provide utility customers with the tool to see what their water consumption is, but really more importantly, a tool like this allows customers of the utility to be able to manage their water conservation. And we have a demonstration this afternoon. Tina will go through it, and it's a really cool feature. So next slide, thank you. So WaterSmart aligns with council priority of strong community connections with the performance measure of quality customer service. It also aligns with the council priority of sustainable growth and development. In particular, the council priority 4.03, which is a water conservation goal of less than or equal to 110 gallons per capita per day of water consumption. Next slide.
So I want to thank the council for letting us talk to you about this wonderful tool in so much depth. And so we want to talk about, first of all, is where we're starting from. A lot of times we get customer volume and also calls, and individually we've all had our own inquiries, and a lot of times those heighten in the summer as water usage starts to peak because of heat and outdoor use. And all of us have probably had that question from a resident: how can I possibly use this much water? And in conversations with residents, some things come out. It is
They want to understand their water usage. They want to understand the data. They want access to the data. We're living in a day and age where data, no matter where you are, whether you're water or any other applications out there, is they want to be able to have that data at their fingertips. They also want to be able to manage that and understand that better. And they want transparency. So one of the reasons why we developed this tool is to help them answer those questions. A lot of people don't really understand exactly how much water they use throughout the course of the day, throughout the course of the month, throughout the course of the year. So this tool is going to help them really understand that and empower them to utilize that information more. A lot of residents are also concerned about conservation, is how to appropriately use water. And so this tool has helped to answer that question. And so Tina, our awesome, and your awesome conservation coordinator, is going to walk you through some of the wonderful aspects of this tool.
So what has Tempe been doing to address all these dynamics that Gretchen just mentioned? We've actually had a water conservation program since the early 1990s, and this program helps to incentivize, educate, encourage our wise water management amongst all of our customers. And these programs have also evolved over the years to match our customers' changing water use dynamics, advances in the industry, especially irrigation efficiency, and just the outcomes of the programs as well. The city has, as previously mentioned, invested in advanced metering infrastructure, the efficient system that is automatically collecting water meter reads every hour through an electronic network. And we're the first city to implement this network, this advanced infrastructure, in combination with a customer portal called WaterSmart. And WaterSmart is basically a user-friendly dashboard that connects our customers with the data this infrastructure provides. They'll be able to check hourly usage, look at their historical trends. They can compare their usage to similar households in the same zip code. There are algorithms that will actually flag unusual usage, so they can check to see if they have a potential leak. They can see conservation recommendations and then easily connect to the payment portal so they can pay their bills as well. It's basically a water management tool that empowers our customers with actionable data, easily accessible through their preferred mode of communication, whether it's a desktop, on a browser, through a tablet, through a smartphone, calling customer services on the phone and needing that data right away, explaining and answering that question, or through one-on-one consultations with our conservation staff. It's not just a lot of data kind of on the screen, but it's interpreted in a way that our busy residents can look at it and see, okay, big picture, where's my water use going, and then drill in deeper to answer those questions of when it's actually being used. And so now we'll toggle to the, excellent. Oh, are you driving? Okay, excellent. So we have this great opportunity to show you a customer's real account today. This is not just a City of Tempe resident, but also an employee who's given us permission. So you'll see the dashboard, very easy. There are tiles that show information very quickly, how much is owed on the recent bill, the most recent usage broken down by day, so you can compare month to month, and the data is normalized. Announcements either from the algorithms in the program or from us. They can see their water score, how they compare to folks living in the same zip code that have similar household characteristics.
Yeah, you can have a little competition with your neighbors.
Exactly.
All right.
Yeah. Top recommendation for the particular customer, as well as easy links to get to programs and resources that are related to the information on here. And I want to show you if the customer looked at their daily usage and wanted some more info, they can hit View Use or click on the Track feature. And once they're there, oh good. Once they're there, they can see the default is hourly or daily information, total water usage. As you can see, I'm hovering over each bar and it shows the daily total gallons usage for the last 2 weeks. If they wanted to dial in further, so if I were this resident, I'm always curious about the days where I use the most water. So I might look, oh, 790, what happened that day? And so you could see exactly when that water usage was used, at least down to the hour. For this amount of water, probably outdoor watering, could be a lot of laundry. And you can see when it's happening. And then let's say you're not interested in the details at this time, but you want to see more overall trends. You can look at 2-month trends. You can look at it over the year. Bring your attention here to an interesting little spike here that we'll come back to. Or let's say you just want to look at monthly trends. You can look at it in terms of the way that you would expect to if you were comparing your billing usage, the usage that is used to affect your bill. And then, of course, you can look at your leaks and the potential unusual usage that indicate a leak. So I want to come back to this year. So this is very interesting. We're always looking for leak examples to show, and this customer experienced one earlier this year. And if there's unusual usage that indicates it could be a leak, the algorithms will mark it orange, and it will let you know an estimated rate of that leak as well. So it started January 12th between 10 p.m. and 11 p.m. approximately, and it did not end until noon. And because we had the privilege to talk to this customer and employee, it turned out it was a pool cartridge installation gone awry, but it was fixed very quickly, as you can see. So if you were interested in looking at just more the traditional view where you're looking at your last 12 months and comparing that to the 12 months before, there are also charts that show that. And again, you hover over and it'll show you normative data. So it divides your total usage by the number of days in that period. So even if there's a different number of days or the billing period is different, it'll show you your use broken down by day. So you can already see just by visually the colors that this customer is doing very well. But in case you don't want to do the math, WaterSmart also lets the customer know. You used 29% less water during the most recent 12-month period compared to the prior 12-month period. Customer is doing very well. But let's say the customer is worried about another leak, another situation. They can set use notifications, and there's another way to get to that as well. They can hit settings, and communication preferences is another way to get here. And they can decide, do I want to get daily use notifications? What is the threshold that I want to get those notifications? Do I want email, text message, voice message, all three? I really like that if you click text message, you're able to put your phone number right there so you can decide who in your family gets that text message. What is the phone that is most likely to get the quickest response? You can do the same with bill forecast notifications, Utility Connect. The customer doesn't have to call and they can come in anytime to change that information or unsubscribe or change the threshold. If they're ready to take action, they can go to take action. Recommended actions, there are out of 30, they'll show a set of recommended conservation tips for that particular customer. And any recommendation that is associated with a rebate or an education program that we offer has a green band across the top. When you click on that, you'll be able to link right to the form on our website that talks about the rebate or the program that's associated. Let's say the customer looks at all of this data and they need some help. They need that one-on-one help. They can actually go to the forms section. It's also in a couple different areas to try to make it as convenient as possible, but they can fill out a form letting us know they want a free water consultation, and we'll contact them immediately to schedule that one-on-one help. And then if we can toggle back, show you one last thing we couldn't show you in a live demonstration for good reason. Oh, let me put that up. For good reason, because the leak that was shown in this sample is not an open case anymore. So if it were an open case, it happened within the last 10 days or usage indicates it's still going on. When you go to the track page, it actually pops up and says, continuous leak or burst leak detected. It'll tell you the type of leak. It'll tell you approximately when it started, that unusual usage, the rate, flow rate, the amount of water that's being wasted to kind of compel that next step. And then you can click on that dark orange button, investigate possible leak. The leak resolution module pops up and you can actually go step by step. It guides you through how to check that leak. And at the very end, if you can't find it, you can get to the form and sign up for a consultation. We'll come and help the customer out. We are very excited about this tool, not only for the self-service capabilities, but also for our ability as staff to be able to help address customers' concerns and questions right there and in such a visual way. But I want to spend some time on what our customers actually are thinking about this. So we surveyed some of our beta testers and early adopters and asked them, what do you love about WaterSmart? And we got great responses, and here are a highlight of a few. I love that it gives me a heads up when I use more than my normal usage so that I can quickly determine if there's a water leak or if I've forgotten to turn off my irrigation system, or I simply use more water and need to be more mindful and less wasteful. That really speaks to the heart of this tool in that even if you don't currently have an issue, it just really answers that question, how much water are you using? Where is it going? Increasing that water consciousness that is so important. It is great. After reviewing a few days of usage, I contacted our landscape company to evaluate the irrigation system. Have seen about a 300% drop in water usage during the watering periods. I have it as a permanent tab on my browser and check it every day. I love this example of how actionable this data is. Like you just see, most of us, when we go to our portal and look at our usage, you'll start to see right away outdoor usage is where it's going.
We have one question real quick.
I have a question. So will there be a way in a year to look at water that was saved where leaks were identified and be able to point to the savings in water and also to the savings in money for the customers?
Vice Mayor, yes, from our end, the admin dashboard, which we aren't showing today, but we can actually see if people go through the leak detection module and they let us know that they've identified the leak as a result of being alerted on the dashboard, then it actually will estimate the water savings for them, making that fix much faster than the standard response. So very actionable. This customer, they looked at the data, they contacted the landscape company, and just that awareness of, hey, I have a lot of water going out there, and the experts were able to help this customer and save water just by that data. I love being able to find out about leaks more quickly. We just developed a leak in our underground backyard pipes around Thanksgiving. We were able to turn off that part of our system within a few days of the leak starting. This is so unusual in the water utility industry. The ability to very quickly, within days of a leak starting, being able to know that you have unusual usage indicating a leak. It only is possible because of that hourly usage with the dashboard and the algorithms. And finally, this last one wasn't actually from a survey. This was unsolicited, sent in through Tempe 311 in April. I just want to share how much I love my new smart water meter. I noticed I was using 7 gallons of water every day at 7 a.m. before I woke up. I checked my irrigation timer and found one of the zones was set that I thought was disconnected. I never would have found this if it weren't for the smart meter and the website that displays my hourly usage. Thank you. What a satisfied customer, but also just perfectly putting together the benefits of this infrastructure investment combined with a dashboard. And it's not completely correct. The customer could have gotten help if they got a water consultation, because one of the things we do is we write down the schedule on the irrigation controller and then ask the customer, is this what you intended? Did you know your landscaper set this? Here are some recommendations. But maybe the customer is not ready for this and they want to access that information on their own. This tool's there 24/7 to help them do that. And we've actually already seen a couple customers that we've introduced to WaterSmart go, ooh, maybe I should get a consultation. And sometimes it can inspire that next step. But before they're ready to take advantage of our conservation programs or even talk to us, they have that data right in front of them. What's next? Our PIO has come up with a communications plan that hits digital, social, physical media as well as traditional. And the WaterSmart implementation team, which includes staff from all areas, including neighborhoods, customer services, water utilities, communications, will help to implement this. We'll, of course, want to achieve a high sign-up rate from our customers. We're going to continue to survey as we're getting more and more registrations. And then coming up soon, we will also have the city will offer enhanced payment features through the Paymentus implementation as well.
This is awesome. I mean, when Ken first showed me this, I signed up, I looked on my phone, and it showed me exactly where my sprinklers go off in the morning. And I know I need to reduce it, so I'm going to have staff come out and help me with that. I think this is phenomenal. And one, you can see, as I mentioned earlier, you can have a little competition with your neighbors. When you talk to your neighborhoods at your neighborhood meetings and so forth, we should try to do a competition with our neighborhood groups. I think it'd be kind of fun to see what happens there. And council, we could do it with council. But this is tremendous because this not only is another example of what we're doing to try to strive to become a smart city and using the actual data and the technology that we have to be better at conserving water. And that's something that, given the conditions where we live in and this is a precious commodity for us. So this is exciting. The investments in both the advanced meter infrastructure and the WaterSmart infrastructure software really helps tackle some of the complex issues that you mentioned in your presentation that our residents may not know about. So whatever we could do to get this information through our neighborhood office to the neighborhood associations and the property management companies, that would be phenomenal, because I think it'd be good for them, because they may be able to help look at their own usage and how they look at stuff throughout their community. And the fact that, and I know we're first in many, you said this, we're the first city to actually implement the smart water meter program.
Yes, Mayor, in combination with the dashboard,
With
giving
the
our customers access to that info directly.
Councilmember Chin?
Great work. I think you'll get a great response. I know that I need to call for a consultation. My question is for concern of staff. Are you prepared for the increase in the number of consultation requests?
We right now can do about 20 appointments a week, and our average is more 8 to 10. So we definitely have capacity to increase to meet our customers' desire.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes. Wait. Okay, go ahead, Jennifer.
Yes, I'm a huge supporter of this program. It provides constant communication between the residents and their water usage. For example, if your family's on vacation, you can get on the computer and determine if you're going to be using, or if you're using the normal amount of water for being gone. And if your water usage suddenly goes up, you can become aware of leaks very fast and stop them and save a lot of water. So great work, staff.
Councilmember Keating.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm so impressed with this tool. I love looking at my hourly and daily usage. And, to the Vice Mayor's point, I would love to have a competition among the council, because I feel like I win that walking away at this point. I'm only 112 gallons a day for under 4,000 gallons a month. And how I do this is actually very interesting. Robin and the chief know this, but I don't shower on Tuesdays or Thursdays. So you guys wouldn't know, but these two, But anyway, it's worth it to save the water and to win the competition that I hope we have.
That's not. But you also have to have, if there is a competition, you have to have all the different variables in there.
True.
Additional family
no one
members.
needs to have kids there.
Councilmember
Hey,
Donna
thank you,
Savage.
Mary. Just really quick, Tina, first I just got to say, I wish I had as much energy as you did.
Yeah.
That is amazing. I really do appreciate your confidence and knowledge and the energy that you bring to the table. So thank you for that, because I think it gets everybody excited. So great work. I always love being on the cutting edge. And I don't know if I really want to do this competition. I don't know if we're going to eliminate showering because it's bad already. But I think it's really great, and I hope that we get the word out and get a lot more residents to sign up, because I think it's a win-win situation for everybody. I think everybody wants to do the right thing, they just don't know, and the importance of educating them and the people that are willing to sit down and do it, I think that's going to be a really great thing for everybody. So thank you guys so very much. Thank you guys.
Yes.
Mayor?
Yes, Councilman Navarro.
Yeah, I just wanted to say a quick thank you to staff. I mean, this is tremendous, in my opinion, coupled with the dashboard. You guys said it all, but long and short, I mean, I'm so proud of Tempe and what we're doing and being innovative for this to happen. This is going to be outstanding. So thank you to everybody.
All right, Vice Mayor Cubey.
All I can say to Councilmember Keating is maybe you should wash your dog once in a while, because, yeah. Just want to thank you and thank Holly for your leadership. Your team is amazing, and Rosa for all that you've done leading that entire team. This is an exciting program, and you have to allot some time to be able to spread the word throughout the valley. I think there'll be a lot of interest in other cities in hearing about how we did this, and I'd love for you to come back in a year and report on some of the data that you'll be collecting. And thank you so much for all your hard work.
Yep, thank you so much. Thanks, Gretchen. Holly, thank you. Rosa, everybody, Tina, your energy. All right, next item on our agenda is the large volume residential water customers. Mr. Jones and Rosa.
evening, Mayor and Council. I'm Ken Jones, Deputy City Manager.
Good evening, Rosen Chowsky, Director of Strategic Management and Diversity and Interim Director for Municipal Utilities.
Good evening, Holly Rosenthal, Deputy Municipal Utilities Director for Water Utilities and Interim Plant Operations Manager. I need one desperately.
Our objective was to send the previous group up and get you in really good mood before this presentation. How'd that work? That's good. Good.
We did.
So the issue before you tonight is large volume residential water customers. And Rose is going to talk about how this relates to our council priorities.
Yes. So as just for the residents who are watching, the mayor and council had an initiative 3 years ago to create a city strategic plan that's fully operationalized. So most of the presentations you see are aligned using performance measures and the council priorities as a compass to help us direct. So the sustainable growth and development is a council priority. Specifically 4.03 is a water conservation performance measure as a direct measure. And then the indirect measure is 4.11, which is achieve a citywide 25% tree canopy, shade canopy by 2040. And that is just basically indirectly to encourage residents to use the tool we just saw to help us with the tree canopy.
So Mayor and Council, I'm going to first address the issues that you brought to us. On the February 21st work study session, the City Council directed staff to do two things. Come back and tell us what the impact is of our current rate structure on our high volume water users. And the second issue you said was bring us back some ideas if we wanted to address that issue. So we're going to do both of those tonight. I'm going to start out by addressing the impact question. I can tell you that we had quite a large team of city employees working on that. Besides the three of us, Renee Broderick and Tom Dunsing and Gretchen Baumgardner and her team all contributed to this. We had a lot of discussions about what the possible options were. And to be honest, there are a lot of different ways we could have gone on coming to you with possible suggestions. So I wanted to make sure that you recognize how many employees were working on this. This is a complicated issue. The City Council brought a couple issues to our attention that they thought might be concerns. One is, do we have high volume users that are paying higher rates based on our assumption that they're being inefficient with their water when in fact they might not be using their water inefficiently? That's something that was stated to us. And another was, can you just look at our rate structure and tell us whether or not it is reasonable and comparable with other cities? That was another concern that the City Council brought to our attention. So let's look at our rate structure. Our rate structure was developed a lot like many rate structures in many water utilities. It's a very well thought out plan. It's based on good statistical data. It's consistent throughout the industry. And what our rate structure does, it's a cost-based philosophy. What it is not is a rate structure that's intended to penalize people for high water usage. It is intended to recover the cost that each user applies to the system. So if you're driving cost, you should pay for that. That's the basis of the system, and that's a consistent philosophy used throughout the industry. So I'll say that our staff, Steve White, who also worked on this a considerable amount, Steve White used a lot of good data analytics to get to this. But if you look at our rate structure, you'll see that we have 5 tiers. And the last tier there, I listed as discretionary use. That's a tier that was determined that it's to recover the cost that's associated with additional capital assets that you have to produce that water. In other words, it's assumed that people in tier 5 contribute to our peak demand that requires us to have additional infrastructure in order to meet that peak demand. That's what tier 5 represents. So again, there is no perfect rate structure. If there were, all of the cities would just adopt that. And when we look at ours compared to other cities, we see that of all of the cities in this comparison here, all of the benchmark cities, no two are alike. Not only are the highest tiers not the same in any city, but they're similar, but the rates that are charged for that highest tier are different. So there is no perfect rate structure, but they're all based on good premise, which is, for the most part, cost recovery. How do we recover the costs for the people who contribute to those costs? Ours is no different than that. The element that I want to point out in here is that all of the rate structures have one thing in common. It's based on how much water you use. They do a great statistical analysis to get to that. So for example, Tempe's 40,000 gallons. Based on our rate structure, what we're saying is if you use more than 40,000 gallons per month, then that is contributing to our peak demand, and you have to pay a higher rate to pay for that infrastructure. Below 40,000 gallons, you don't. This is all good, valid, statistical-based analysis. However, it's black and white. We know, just applying common sense to the statistics, that the person who uses 40,001 gallons compared to the person who uses 39,999, one isn't contributing to our peak demand and the other isn't, right? We don't know that because we don't know how they use the water. But that's common. Throughout the industry, it would be hard to take this analysis and say, now we're going to look at how you use the water. And if you're actually contributing to our peak demand, we're going to bill you more. You know who does that? SRP, APS. If you say, I'm going to change my use to time of day, then they measure when you use the water so that they can tell whether you contribute to the peak demand. In our water system, that would be very difficult. This is very common. So what I'm telling you is this is a statistically valid rate structure that we have. There's nothing wrong with it other than what's wrong with most of them, which is you're trying to accommodate use of water based on the number of gallons used. Okay, so this is a good statistical analysis. When I look at tier 5, so we're going to focus a little bit on that largest tier. What we're going to propose tonight, and Rosa's going to go through the proposal that staff came up with, is we want to take that tier 5, that black and white number of 40,000 gallons, and say, can we blur that line a little bit? Can we bridge that gap? Can we actually talk to people and say, you know, you contribute to our peak demand by watering your lawn of 2 acres every day at our peak demand period. If we could convince you to use that off peak, now we shouldn't charge you tier 5 rates because you're not contributing to our peak demand. We want to get out and talk to people, and we believe that if people hear from our folks what they can do to help us alleviate that peak demand, that we can get them out of tier 5. So this is not a gift to people. This is a partnership with people so that we can convince them. We want to show them what our goals are. We want to show them how they can help us. And then we want to enroll them in the program so that they can. Rosa is going to talk about the proposed solution.
So yes, real quickly. So as Ken has mentioned, and you just saw the presentation earlier, we had about 3 different departments in this kind of small inner working group within the city and a few offices represented. And what we learned is much of what we had just learned from the WaterSmart, we have great smart tools in Tempe. We just saw a great example of a tool that's being underutilized right now with residents, and we want to get the word out. But we want to do it in Tempe fashion, collaborating and building relationships with our residents so they know that they have this transparent tool that they can use to manage their own water use. So after many discussions with the group, and I have to say Taria was also indirectly involved, and Tina, but we came up with a policy change recommendation that we're bringing to you, which is basically trying to help the tier 5 customers if they demonstrate efficiency use by having one of, and Polly's going to explain the details of this, but if they go through a consultation and they show efficiency use, that they would go back into a tier 4. The second part of that is increased outreach efforts, really accelerating the outreach we have with residents regarding the collaboration on these consultations. We've had about 139 consultations. Tina mentioned that we have about 8 out of the 20 spots that they have for capacity. So we just want to accelerate that for the coming year. And then report the results. We talk about data all the time with strategic planning. We would like to use this pilot, 1 year of data, and then come back to you with the council with the next rate study and use that data as another data point that we use to make the decisions with the council. And now Holly's going to explain a little more detail as far as what that consultation looks like.
Okay, so I'm bursting with pride for our water conservation team and the great work that they're doing both with WaterSmart and with this program. what we're proposing to do, and it has been said already, is create a stronger partnership, a strong partnership with our customers and the largest volume residential customers, so that we can connect with them in a way that will make sense for them and be a win-win for everyone. Drive down our water usage, drive down their water usage and the cost of that to them. And we propose to do that, or we're laying out the suggestion to do that through a 12-month pilot education and outreach program. So we're focusing, like I said, on the top volume water customers. Actually, we started out looking at the top 500, and when we looked at that group and we expanded it to their neighborhoods, we're at about 2,000 now in terms of the number of people that we're going to approach with a high intensity outreach program and try to get connected with them. When we're excited about the 139 consultations that we did in 2017, but that's 139 out of 32,000 residential customers, and we think we can do better. And we think we can do better with WaterSmart, so we're also challenging our residents to blow through the national average for WaterSmart participation and really ramp up our community's use of WaterSmart in partnership with this program. So one of the ways that we're doing that as part of the proposed pilot program is to ask people to schedule a consultation with us and register for WaterSmart. So participating in WaterSmart, registering for WaterSmart is a component of the program, and scheduling a consultation is a requirement of the program. We want people to sign up for text alerts. We want them to identify, yes, sir.
Yes, Councilmember Keating.
Thank you, Mayor. Sorry, I had a quick question. So is signing up for WaterSmart required, or is it suggested?
Signing up for WaterSmart is a required component of this pilot program.
Great, thank you.
Yep. And also we want to ask people to sign up for their text alerts so that they can, because we think this will be really powerful. I think we have more people in the community than we are aware, or who are aware themselves of the really low-hanging fruit of water waste, and we'd like to bring that to their attention as quickly as possible. So we're requiring the WaterSmart, we're requiring a consultation, we're asking them to take some of the recommendations from the consultations and deploy them. So what might that look like? We would look at whether they're using a smart controller and how much they're watering their landscape. It's really important to understand that we're not trying to get people to change their landscape. We're trying to get people to use the right amount of water that's required for a thriving landscape. And we believe that that can be much less than most people are using. So a smart controller, irrigation system improvements, and the associated rebates with those irrigation system improvements. We're really ready to be part of their team and to bring great ideas to them that they can deploy, and then we'll come back and check in, and these things together will allow them to move down into from the 5th tier to the 4th tier.
But Mayor, I should have at the very beginning, if I may interrupt just for a second, Holly, just to explain what the 5th tier is. When I was on the rate structure, I should have mentioned this. The 5th tier that's the amount you pay for that water over 40,000 gallons. When you hit the 5th tier, you're going to pay that amount for every gallon after that. But over half of the people in the 5th tier are only hitting it 1 month out of the year. Approximately half. I want to say it's 48.7% of the people. 75% of the people don't hit it more than 3 months out of the year. So there's no such thing as a tier 5 customer. It's a customer who happens to use enough water to reach tier 5 in a given month. We don't want to distinguish tier 5 customers versus non-tier 5 customers.
Right.
Sorry to interrupt.
No, that's
Wait,
great.
Councilmember Keating.
I have another question. Thank you, Mayor. Ken, this is for you. Sorry. Ken, this is for you. I know that water utility is an enterprise fund. Would this affect, the fund balance or the revenue stream that we're expecting from the utility?
We could wait for that at the end of that.
Oh, it's part of this already? I didn't see it
Go
in the
ahead.
presentation.
Go ahead.
Your call, Mayor. Do you want me to address that
No, go
now?
ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
So the water utility fund, it is a water enterprise fund that's self-supporting, and The total amount that we collected in Tier 5 in the last full fiscal year was about $120,000. We don't expect all of the customers in Tier 5 to come forward and qualify for the program and immediately be introduced into Tier 4. We think that a more likely scenario is we might see a reduction of $20,000. What I would expect is a lot of people just reduce their usage and go from Tier 5 to Tier 4. So then you would say this isn't money that we would have recovered anyway had they reduced their usage.
Makes sense. Thank you.
Perfect.
All right, so going back to consultations, we have some of the most experienced and knowledgeable water conservation folks in the valley, and they are filled with enthusiasm and ideas for how people can conserve water. So we're asking as part of this program to take one of those ideas, to have our residents take one of those ideas that comes from their consultation recommendations and deploy it as part of their program and part of their participation. I think what's really exciting to understand is that with the consultations that we've done to date, we've realized a 13% reduction in water usage from those same customers for whom we've done consultations.
You said 13% versus what's on our slide.
It's 13% reduction. So I'll come back to that. So
Okay.
this is the potential savings for future customers who participate in the program. But to date, the consultations that we've delivered or that we've performed have delivered a 13% on average reduction in usage for a 13% reduction in usage, totaling about 4.3 million gallons annually. But what's really exciting is that some of our consultations have resulted in 30% or 50% or as much as 70% reduction in water usage for a customer. And those are the ones we want to get to quickly. So, and again, those are things where people have undetected leaks, and through WaterSmart and these consultations, we help hone in on them. The slide that we're looking at now, the potential savings, looks at 4 examples of customers and how the program would impact those customers and what kind of benefit and results they would get out of it. It only assumes a 10% reduction in their water usage, and we think we can do better, but we're using that conservative return or reduction amount. And so for an average customer that's using, and these are all examples of customers over the 40,000 gallon threshold. So at 45,000 gallons, a customer would see $23.20 per month in the reduction of the cost of their water bill. And then that ramps up to almost $66 for a customer who would be using 90,000 gallons. So we're getting the benefit of reducing. This is a program that encourages people to be mindful of their water usage, to change their behavior, to reduce their consumption, and then to reap the benefits of it through the savings that they realize in their water usage and the extra perk of being reduced from the Tier 5 to the Tier 4. So we're asking you this evening to consider this as a rate policy. Did I miss a slide or my?
No, this slide's just a little different than the hard copy.
Okay. And to sign on to encouraging our residents to participate in our programs and to give us an opportunity to work on really high-intensity, focused outreach, education and outreach for those largest volume residential customers. And then come back to you and tell you how it worked and report those results a year from now.
So we listed some of the benefits here that we think you would derive from this program. We think it does promote conservation. We think we use the term equity, which could be translated to fairness for purposes for this slide. We think it's fair in terms of, again, I'm going to restate that people who currently pay Tier 5 rates are assumed to be contributing to a need for additional capital. We think it's good to meet with those people and see whether or not that's the case and try to make those adjustments. And then also the thing that both Holly and Rosa touched on, which is developing that partnership with our with our customers, we know that water conservation isn't going away. We know that water conservation in the future will be heightened. There will be times when we become like California, where a drought requires reduction in water usage mandated by the state. When those things occur, we would like to think that our customers are partners of ours, that we've helped through these times to come to reasonable conclusions. And that's part of the program, to just kind of develop that partnership with our customers. So we got through that as quickly as we could. We know it's a lot of information, but we're willing to address any questions you might have.
Thank you. Councilmember Keating?
Thank you, Mayor. I don't really have a question. I just kind of wanted to speak to the program and give my opinion, I guess, right? It's my job. You know, I'm pleased with this because if the ultimate goal is to save water, it seems like that's what we're doing. If we can drive down the residential water usage through efficiency programs, I love the idea of getting them, mandating that they're on WaterSmart so they can see when they're using their water and offering them a window when it's not peak times that they could still utilize the same amount of water, but at a lower rate. I think makes a lot of sense. I was signed up to that program with SRP. You know, I saved $5 a month. So to me, that wasn't worth it. But, you know, to these water folks, it may very well may be. So, you know, if we're driving down the water usage and we're driving down the cost and it's not going to affect our budget, I think it's really kind of a middle of the road compromise to those people that have these concerns, you know, because we're putting the onus on conservation. We're not just, hey, you know, you're upset, so we're going to lower your bill. It's no, you have to work with the city because you're driving costs to the city. And you're using, you know, an absorbent amount of water. In some cases, you look at these users with 100,000 gallons, and it's like, what are you doing? So, you know, if they can take concrete steps to lower their impact on our system and on the environment, I'm fine with, you know, giving them a break on the price as long as it doesn't affect our city budget. So I'm very pleased with this, and you guys had a hard job. So, you know, thank you for coming up with this innovative program. So I look forward to, well, hopefully you have consensus to move forward with this pilot, but I look forward to hearing the results and maybe making it something more permanent if we see that this is actually working and we're saving water in our city. Thank you.
Councilmember Chin?
On.
Yep, no. Green's on, red's on.
Thank you, Mayor.
Greens go, red is stop.
Last presentation, we learned that there were high call volumes related to water usage. I think this goes hand in hand with that. That demonstrates to me a need for education and a call for information. I think this is great. Thank you all for your work on this. It makes sense to begin the education with the largest water users. So thank you.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, Jen. Councilmember Adams.
While thank you. While this issue doesn't affect me personally,
Wait,
I am
Jen,
so
you're going to have to
supportive
talk
of
into
this.
the phone. We can barely hear you.
Okay, wait a minute, let me do this. Okay, is that better?
Yes.
Okay. Hang on a second. Hang on 1 second. Okay, so can you hear me now?
Yes.
While this issue does not affect me personally, I'm so supportive about this that I made a video about it.
Wait.
It is the perfect way to lower water. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
It's the perfect way to lower our water usage and our water bills. Instead of hitting residents with a hammer, we are partnering with them to help one another understand what is happening with our water usage while lowering our water usage. This is perhaps the most win-win situation I have seen yet since elected. This gives our residents the opportunity to work with the city and lower their water bills. With that said, I am a total supporter of this program and want to thank Holly, Rosa, Rini, and Ken, and all of the other staff who worked on this innovative solution to our high water bills and high water usage. This will increase our valuable tree canopy. We have already saved 4.3 million gallons of water, as Holly mentioned, by working with our residents. Just think how much more water we are going to save by making it more widespread throughout the entire city. This is the proof we need to implementing this program. Keep up the great work. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Erdano Savage.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Well, I guess I'll just say it because this will make four of us. I am 100% in support of this project. I mean, this goes back to, I went back and looked in the regular council meeting from November 2017 when we were doing the rate adjustments, and we had said, and we promised, after listening and hearing from our residents, their concerns and frustrations in regards to the rates and how it impacted them, especially for the large water users. So I think this has been kind of a long time coming, and the fact that we were able to collaborate internally and really listen to our residents and come up with a really great solution that not only educates but also makes connections and partnerships. I mean, to me, that's Tempe values. That is what we are and that is what we do. So I really 100% trust in our residents that they will take advantage of this opportunity, educate themselves, and I think just like Ken Jones says, I think that their numbers will go down naturally just because they're going to learn about efficiency. And so I'm super excited about that. I hope that we can get the program started right away. To think that within the 139 consultations, and we already have a 13% decrease, I mean, just imagine what's going to happen when we roll that number out to more, like I think you said, Holly, you're going to blow through the national something, but I thought it was kind of cool. But also, I do want to make sure that we said it's going to be a year. I want to just make sure that we're able to encompass another summer. So if there is a way that we maybe, start it right away and then wrap it up at the end of next summer, maybe, so we could actually get that data in there, because I think that is what I heard and what I've seen in the background material, that those are the highest using months. So I think it'd be really important to make sure we capture those, if that's the will of the council, to make sure that we're able to do that. But again, I think this is exactly what we need to do, and I'm really pleased with everybody that's here and everybody that's been involved. I think this is going to be exactly a great opportunity for our residents to take advantage of and do exactly what we're trying to do to reach our strategic goals. So thank you very much for that.
Yeah, just quickly, it's been said, but just quickly, I mean, the state has an initiative to really start working at this water issue. I can be more proud of what we're trying to do here in Tempe. Obviously, it's a mindset. Obviously, we have to make changes, and obviously, we're doing it with input and with data. And I can't speak highly about this program. I know that we need to do our job on regulating our water. With the two presentations we had, and coupled with this is outstanding. So 100% support.
Vice Mayor Kuby.
So as your AMWA representative, Arizona Municipal Water Users Association, we're one of 10 cities in that group, and I am the Tempe representative. And I feel sort of duty-bound to offer a countering opinion. I recognize that there's consensus to move forward, and I respect the council decision, but I've had really mixed thoughts about this proposal since I first heard about it last week. And I'm slightly frustrated with the process by which we got here, and I don't think the rate change, the policy change for the top 6% of our Tempe water users is going to do much for the city in the long run. I really want to be proven wrong. I want to see data, and I want to be proven wrong, but I suspect that changing our tier system, we'll find at the end of 12 months that not much has actually happened beyond reaching out to more people. And I always have been in favor of a supercharged outreach campaign. That's been the heart and soul of our water conservation. But what concerns me a little bit is the process of how we got here. And I know process is very important to this council. 2 years ago, with input from Tempe residents, staff conducted a very robust rate study, very rigorous. We voted to accept and implement 2 very small rate increases a year apart. And keep in mind that we're squarely within the middle. We're right smack in the middle of our benchmark cities, the 10 benchmark cities in terms of our water rates. We're not too high, we're not too low. Ultimately, we made only 1 rate increase during that time, and I think it was an average of, 4% across all the city water customers. Almost immediately, we heard from some colleagues and from residents that this new structure had caused great injustice to the people living on larger lots with significant landscaping. People were asked, or staff was asked repeatedly for ideas on how to offer discounts, rebates, and other remedies, and we encouraged and looked at more outreach, and we've seen success with that. So my concern is about the process and the direction of staff that they create what is ultimately a short-term solution, a 1-year solution. It hasn't really included data. For example, look at rates of 50,000, 60,000, 70,000. We have residents that use 170,000 gallons. We're really focused on that 40,000 and that line, and we're talking about blurring the line, but to me, a line between 40,000 and 170,000 gallons is not a blurred line. I'm concerned that there was some misinformation, and I just want to get out there publicly and talk about that a little bit. It was suggested that the rate, the tier 5 was created to punish users, and Ken, you made a really strong argument that we base our rates on cost recovery, so thank you for making that point tonight. And that the fact is the high volume users, I'm talking about really high volume, I'm not even necessarily talking about the 40,000, I'm talking in the 100,000 range. They're generally the ones that do contribute to our peak water demand and the need for increased infrastructure to meet that demand. So if it weren't for the high volume of any of those high tier 5 customers, we wouldn't have the higher infrastructure costs. So it's entirely fair that they pay an increased rate to cover those costs. Forgive me, I know I have a lot to say, but this is one of my areas also at ASU. I wrote Decision Center for Desert City, the Sustainable Water Management proposal many years ago, so this is I'm very passionate about it, but I think I have some knowledge too. We also heard that if we didn't lower the water rates for customers, we'd be forced to cut down trees at a time when Tempe is looking to increase our tree canopy. Now I, like the tree hugger of Tempe, I didn't do it, my husband hired someone to do it, cut down 2 trees after a monsoon storm. It broke my heart. I even threatened to chain myself to the tree to prevent the trees from being cut down, and my husband said, "You cannot protest your husband." I said, "Yes, I can." Si se puede. But I cut down my trees because they were no longer feasible. The growth of the tree had been so harmed by the monsoon, we had to cut them down. So there's no evidence of the practice that somehow people are cutting down their trees because of our water rates, and I think we have to make that clear and be able to tell our residents these facts. If people did cut down trees because the water rates were presumed to be higher, it's very unwise because mature trees are water conserving trees. They offer, many of the trees have low water use. They offer such ecological ecosystem benefits like absorbing and helping the groundwater table, transpiration. I could go into geek out and tell you all sorts of information about the benefits of trees, and I won't go into that, but we obviously want to see more of them, but trees are not the culprit of high water bills unless they're being heavily watered, overwatered, and we know from studies at ASU that in the valley, we typically overwater our mature trees. But lush lawns may be the cause of some of this overwatering. We've also heard the word equity being used and thrown around as if it were synonymous with equal, and we know that to be equal is not the same as to have equity. As if everyone needs to pay the same rate for water in order for it to be equitable and fair. But when it comes to water, equity means no one pays for a service they themselves haven't incurred. That means if my more conservative water use doesn't create a need for new infrastructure, then I don't pay for new infrastructure. In an enterprise fund, lowering the cost for one group generally causes an increase for another group. And I know this is just a one-year pilot. I understand that. So, this isn't going to do any damage to the system and to our enterprise fund, but we have to realize that lowering the cost for one group, those top 6% of users, it's the opposite of equity. Providing discounts for people who put the greatest burden on the system is the opposite of equity. So our process has seen some misinformation and is seeking a solution for a problem that may not actually exist. We know that our rates for those over 40,000 gallons a month are right smack in the middle. We know that our water rates for the highest users are right smack in the middle compared to the benchmark cities in the valley. So if staff was instructed to bring back a solution without being given adequate time to do the research and analyze the data, I believe we would have had better results. And I'm really disappointed because I happen to lead the council working group on drought resiliency, and I believe that this effort should have been examined and thoroughly chewed on by our working group. It wasn't. It was kept outside the working group process. Again, this council finds the process to be very crucial. So we created this false sense of urgency. Well, we have to do this now. When we could have easily addressed this question in the next rate study, which is, we're legally mandated to have this rate study every couple of years, and it's beginning in March. I'm getting through this. I know I'm long, you guys, but this is really important. So, and for what it's worth, I want you to know, Ken, I really agree on the idea of addressing how we use our water alongside how much water we use is really important. And this is, I hope that we'll answer some of those questions in the working group where I think this issue should have been. I agree we should be providing robust outreach to our higher volume users, no dispute there, and provide them with all the information and tools that they need to save money, to save water. I don't know that we need to give them a discount as an added incentive, because we know the greatest savings will come from them having decreased water use. We know that 139 customers saw a 13% on average decrease in water use. That is a benefit, and we should emphasize that that is a benefit. That being said, I know a one-year pilot, it can be evidence-based and studied by water experts. I would urge us to work with Decision Center for Desert City and ASU scientists so we could look at the baseline and study what happened. It's really important to add positive value to our future rate study. But here's the important conversation I want to have, and just sort of introduce it to my colleagues. I really look for consensus on a more evidence-based, comprehensive process as we move forward. We want to address future recommendations from the Drought Working Group and the upcoming Climate Action Plan and have those be based on evidence and data. So I'm asking for consensus that we agree to have a more robust discussion, perhaps at our council retreat, which will be in the fall, to a broader approach to water conservation, to make sure that our values as a city and as a council align with our water rate study before we go into the process, because frankly, I think we put staff in a difficult position. They did exactly what we asked them to do, and then we pulled the rug out from under and said, let's mix this up and let's change our tier 5. And I don't want to go through another rate study and then stop the rate increase or the rate decrease, whatever it turns out to be, and just upend things. I think we need to respect the rate process. So many of the sustainability issues that we're facing in the coming years are really interconnected, they're reactive, they're regional. I think it's important that we have long-sighted, not short-sighted policy solutions to the problems that we haven't fully researched, because we can sort of cause more harm than good, especially when you think about messaging, about the decision, about the rest of the state coming forward with drought contingency plan and really agreeing on conservation and how cities really need to up their game. I think we need to be really conscious of the messages that we're sending out. So obviously I'm not a fan of the proposal, and I understand we're going to move forward, but all I ask as we move forward, that we do our research and we think about evidence-based approaches, and that is all I have to say. It's a long thing, but I felt I had to say it.
Councilmember Hernando Savage, and I'm going to have a comment.
Yeah, just one thing, and I just want to clarify this, and I totally respect your passion, Lauren. That's one thing you definitely have, and I know you have a lot of knowledge in the area too. But I just want to go back and remind everybody, when you mentioned the false sense of urgency, I mean, this was actually supposed to come back to us in April of 2018. So I mean, here we are in June of 2019. So I do believe that there was a sense of, hey, you know what? We promised our residents that we would address this. And I think that our professionals, our staff who are highly qualified to be able to vet this out and come up with a solid recommendation that we see here today, took the right amount of time and utilized the data that they had to bring forth this recommendation. So I understand utilizing the working group, but I also understand the fact that we have highly quality employees that I fully trust. And I'm very happy to support this recommendation and move forward, and want to just again share my appreciation and say my appreciation for the work, and I think the patience to be able to come up with something that I think is a really great compromise and a win-win for everything that we're trying to achieve. So thank you for that.
So one thing I just...
Mr. Mayor?
Wait, hang on. No, I'm going to speak right now because we're not going to go back and forth. We're going to try to have this as a good conversation. One of the things, and I haven't said anything yet. First, I want to thank staff. I mean, Steve White, Gretchen, Holly, Ken, and Rosa, thank you so much for what you did, and the rest of the team. If I missed somebody, I apologize, because we live in a time where we're always looking for innovative solutions. And Tempe is an innovative city, and we're home to Arizona State University, which is the most innovative university. So to have our staff come up with an innovative approach, this is only a one-year pilot program. What we're trying to do is gather data. Our ultimate goal, and it was stated earlier, we're trying to have a reduction in the water consumption. And this is an opt-in proposal, meaning if residents are not going to opt in, they're still going to be in tier 5, and they're going to be paying for what they use for the infrastructure. And eventually we want them to use a smart water meter technology to help us help them to be more efficient as how they use their water. And I think this is more of an educational outreach to our community and working with our community from every aspect to say, hey, we want to partner with you. Our goal is to reduce it. And my hunch, based on the 139 water consultations, and we've seen a 13% reduction in water, I think that's something that speaks volumes. Exactly what we're trying to do is reduce the water usage and reduce it, which ultimately, if you reduce 13% of your water consumption, your bill's going to go down. And that's what we're trying to do, and we'll have less wear and tear in our infrastructure. This is just a year pilot. We're trying to gather the data so that we could use this data for the next rate study. We'll have that information. When is the next rate study? What year? 2020?
It begins next spring,
Next
and goes through the fall. So we
this
hope
will
that
give
this
us
program.
the exact data that we're looking for to help make an informed decision. If it works, fine. If it's great. Our goal is to reduce the water consumption from our users. As we all have stated, this is a precious commodity for our state, that water is. And I thank our staff very much for what you guys have done for this and what you've accomplished. And we'll see how it works. It's only a year pilot, but I think the important aspect is that we're working and engaging with our residents to say, hey, you're using too much water. Here's how you can help yourself. Help us help you. It's up to them. If they decide not to do it, guess what? They're going to be in tier 5, still paying the tier 5 rates. And this is only an opt-in, and it's only for a year. So I appreciate Lauren's. I work with Lauren. I'm going to do what I want to work with you on the climate master plan that we're looking at, action plan, because that's something I believe strongly in, and we have as a city. And I think that's important. And I think, and I do appreciate Lauren's comments and her passion, because I agree there's a lot of stuff that we can do. This is an opportunity for us to communicate, to educate our residents of their usage and how they use it. But in using the technology that we have, I think we'll be in a better position. I hope to prove everybody wrong, like, wow, this actually works. We're already leading in so many areas. This could be another game-changing for other cities in the valley to help even conserve more water, not just in Tempe, but throughout the region. So, yes. Vice Mayor Cubey.
Councilmember Ardona Savage, I just wanted to clarify a point I don't think I made very well, because when I was referring to urgency, I was talking about the fact that this idea, just heard rumors about it last week. Friday, we got the memo. So considering that this is a pretty important change to our water policy, water rates, that's what I meant, the urgency of this idea, like getting 1 week to really vet it. And I did talk to the U.S. The CEO for the Alliance for Water Efficiency, and she had a lot of concerns about some of the assumptions. And I just thought the urgency I'm talking about is to do this in all 1 week with very little public comment in the middle of the summer, not speaking to a lot of the water experts we have in the valley and the water associations. That was what I was referring to when I mentioned urgency.
Okay. All right,
Mr.
with
Mayor?
that, we have consensus. Jennifer?
Yes. Yes, we have consensus.
All right, we have consensus to move forward with the pilot program.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, Councilmember.
There was a suggestion made by Councilmember Ardona Savage about the length of the pilot with respect to if this is going to be starting in, assuming we'll start it right away in, let's say, July of 2019. If it ran for a year, we wouldn't capture the entire summer, I think was Councilmember Ardona Savage's point.
Which is what, another month, August?
We could take it through either August or September of 2020 if that add 2 months. Just want to make sure we capture the consensus correctly.
Yep. I agree with Robin.
We agree that you need to go through a summer in order to capture the data, but we're struggling with the concept of if you set a date certain and say the program will go through a date certain, people who sign up today might get the benefit of 15 months or 13 months, and people who sign up 3 months from now might get the benefit of 9 months or 8 months. So what we're considering is just saying you will be exempt from Tier 5 for a year. That would give us 12 full months of every customer, which would be maybe August this year and June and July of next year, but we would get to see a full summer's use. So we intend to take it through. We know that everybody can't get a consultation on day one, and that some people will lag behind, and we want to give everybody a fair opportunity to have 12 months of relief from Tier 5, if that makes sense to you all.
Yes.
Okay, that helps.
Leave it the way it is.
If that's the reflection of the consensus, that sounds good. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Ken. Thank you. All right, Next item is the municipal complex trees. I think we can get through these pretty quick. We do have an exec session in between our. Let me do the whole items. Yes, Marilyn. It shouldn't be long.
Nope.
Can't? Marilyn, go ahead.
Hi.
Take it away.
I'm Marilyn DeRosa. I'm the Engineering and Transportation Director. And with me, I have Barrett Yergemeyer, who is Senior Civil Engineer in the Engineering Division. And he's one of the projects he's working on currently is the Council Chambers remodel. And you have a memo in your packet that describes some of the concerns that we have at the complex related to the remodel and related to some of the ficus trees. So the memo should have as much, it describes the challenges that we're having pretty well, so we want to try to go through this presentation pretty quickly. The performance measure that we're addressing here is performance measure 4.14 is about our facilities condition index, and it's about the entire facility. We're making an attempt over the next several years to upgrade the entire facility. Hey, what's going on? There it goes. Okay, real quickly, I just want to say that we pulled out the plans from the Michael Goodwin back in the 1970s, and we looked at the landscape plans that he created for this project, and we're showing a picture there of what the inverted pyramid and City Hall appeared. This is from, you're standing at about the 525 building, this image at the top. You can see that one of the visions that Michael Goodwin and his architectural group had at the time was that the City Hall would be a lantern to the community. And there was, at the time, there were a total of 12 trees in the garden level, and the trees were African sumac. And you guys know what African sumac is, so you can imagine that the aesthetic was quite different than it is today. The photo at the bottom is the council chambers from, or I'm sorry, the City Hall complex from 5th Street. And you can see that as the landscape has changed over the years, that the shade trees, particularly the ficus trees that were added in the mid-'80s, have obscured the view of the pyramid. The ficus trees were added. We have anecdotal information to suggest they were added in the mid-'80s at about the same time that the ficus trees went in on Mill Avenue. And I think they're the wrong tree in the wrong place.
Got it.
So in 2008, we did a study, and in 2010, another one about the structure of the municipal complex, and both of those studies suggested that the ficus trees were creating some structural impacts and that they should be reviewed by an arborist. We did that in May, and Barrett is going to talk to you about the 4 trees that, based on that study and based on the council chambers, we believe that need to be removed.
All right. Good afternoon, Mayor and members of council. As Marilyn discussed, the council chambers remodel construction phase is coming up. There will be the removal of trees. We are beginning the council chamber construction phase the first week of July. When we get to the month of August, that will be the month when the trees will be removed. The reason for these removals are various structural and safety conflicts. These conflicts have been defined by our structural engineer, Crusoe, Turley, and Scott, as well as our consulting arborist, West Coast Arborist. We've provided a graphic on the screen, as you can see, a rough approximations of the trees to be removed. On the left side of the screen, roughly labeled trees 10 and 11, ficus trees, are to be removed for structural reasons. Those are along the west wall of the council chambers. Trees 41 and 42, which are located along the east wall of the council chambers, are to be removed for reasons of conflict with a shear wall that we are reinforcing during the construction of the council chamber remodel. To further clarify, tree 42 in particular, which we will discuss, also has structural and safety issues that need to be addressed. We also want to comment that we have reached out to various boards and commissions, in particular the Historic Preservation Commission. We've talked to them about the anticipated tree removals that are to be a part of the council chamber remodel. Also, we've met with the Parks, Recreation, Golf, and Double Buttes Cemetery Advisory Board to discuss the anticipated removals. With both groups, we received concurrence on the removals to occur. Moving on to the next slide, we've highlighted trees 10 and 11, 10 on the left and the graphic you can see on the screen. Tree 11, or excuse me, 10 on the left, 11 on the right. Tree 10 is in fair condition. Unfortunately, it is planted in a space that is narrow and is lacking of soil volume. When you walk by the trees, you can see that the roots are suffering and growing upon the sidewalk. And it is having a conflict with the building. About 50% of the canopy is leaning on the structure. Tree 10, in contrast, is also in poor condition and spacing, has no structural conflicts with the building, but the tree itself does have extreme structural conflicts. Within about 3 years, the arborist is predicting that the tree will die and there will be either a failure of a branch or a trunk. So both are scheduled for removal. As part of the remediation process, once the removals are completed, a temporary 3-foot excavation will be made so that the structural engineer can examine the foundation and the subgrade to look for damages and issues. Go to the next slide. Tree 10 and 11, again, some pictures showing the various issues. They are very close to the wall. There's some good pictures on the bottom row outlining the close proximity of the wall to the trees. One of the most interesting pictures is the top left. You can see that tree 10 is imparting about 50% of its canopy load onto the structure.
All right. I think we get the gist. Mike, you did a great job.
Thank you.
I know you're not done, but
Okay.
I think we understand. I mean, I love the ficus trees, but obviously it's not conducive to how the growth environment it is on the City Hall complex, and it's a necessary thing we need to do is remove them and plant them with something that's more right type of vegetation.
Okay, so we'll just, I just thought you've all seen this one in the middle of the
Oh,
tree
yeah.
growing around the, yeah, okay. So you'll see in your packet, our long-term plan is we're going to do a comprehensive, with our modernization plan, we're going to do a comprehensive landscape plan. We'll remove there's about 8 trees that will eventually, the tree report recommends being removed. And we'll do that over time though, and we'll ensure that, that everyone is aware of what's going on. So with that, does anyone have any questions?
No, I think it's sad, but it's a necessary. Vice Mayor Cubey.
I'll be chaining myself to tree 11.
Mayor,
Yeah, Joel.
I do have my Save the Ficus t-shirt on, but I can't fight this war. I get
I'm
it.
right there with you, buddy.
I want you to know we were really nervous about this.
And I like the trees, but we have a beautiful building that no one can see. But thank you. And thank you very much. All right, next item. Where am I here? Transit fund update. Mr. Iverson and Shelley.
Wrong way. Good evening, Mayor and Council. Shelley Seiler, Deputy Engineering and Transportation Director. With me is Eric Iverson, our Transit Manager, and we're going to give you a very quick update on our transit fund.
Oh, geez, yeah, you saw it. Just riding to work. In the interest of time, we're gonna thank you. We're gonna move through this presentation real quick. The purpose of this really is to complement the budget process that you're in the middle of. We wanted to do a little bit of just discussion and sharing with you about where the transit fund is at. The fund is about 23 years old. So we're shifting from being a building and a capital improvements program and a service expansion fund into being an operations and maintenance fund. I did want to give a shout out to our transit financial analyst, Joe Clemens, who's here tonight, and he really is the one that keeps us in line on this fund, as well as staff and financial services that we work with, Ken and Marte. So performance measures, you have seen these. These are the standard transit performance measures that align with the council's initiatives. This, we want to share with you just a little bit of history, kind of how we got here. This is the exact language that was in the ballot that residents voted on in 1996. These are all the things we said we would do, and the good news is that we've done, we continue to do these, like bus pullouts, adding shade and shelter around the community, adding facilities and expanding service. We've done almost all of these with the exception of some of our service expansions, moving our program into a 15-minute service on all of our bus routes. This is what that looks like. You're all familiar with these. These are the investments that our program makes. So we own about 120 buses, and obviously we have contracts for all these services that you see here that we continue to increase in cost to operate those services citywide. And then this is some of the physical infrastructure that the community has invested in, that staff has worked on for the last nearly 25 years. So we've added many, many miles of bike paths. We've done streetscape projects like the project that was brought forward earlier tonight, the Alameda Drive project. Continuing to change our city, change the community, and build mobility options for everyone around the entire city. More assets. These are some of our even larger dollar assets that we have. We have an East Valley Bus Operations Maintenance Facility that runs the entire East Valley's bus service. Multiple cities, but we own it, we operate it, we pay for that. We do get sharing with some of our regional transportation funds, but we do maintain that infrastructure. It is costly. It is a LEED certified building as well as a transportation center. And then of course we have all of our bus infrastructure that we list out here. And then we wanted to just provide you with this chart that shows the growth of the program. So we went from 0 pathway miles to 40 today. So we have to maintain that. It's costly to maintain that. We went from limited bus routes to many, many bus routes. We're operating that, and those costs are increasing. With that, I'll turn it over to Shelley.
Thanks, Eric. So this is just a picture of what and where we receive our revenue funds from. So quick look at our transit tax. You can see it's 52%, or will be 52% for the 1920 fiscal year. And then we're also paying close attention to the PTF, which is Proposition 400. So as the extension comes up, we want to make sure that we're continuing to receive those funds. So we wanted to give you a little picture, fast forward, of how the spending is going to be occurring. So these pie charts do represent expenditures. And as time goes on, the cost to run our systems does increase. And currently in fiscal year 2018-19, we have $21 million dedicated to CIP. But a large percentage of that is actually from our fund balance. So as we spend down our fund balance, we will have less and less available to build new things. So by the time we get to 28, 29, we're more limited in what we can do going forward.
Hint, hint.
Exactly. So this is our forecast, 10-year forecast for our total program expenditures. The top line is what we do to provide services to our residents in terms of bus, light rail, and streetcar, and you'll see that that's the largest percentage of our expenditures. And then finally, this graph shows the total program. You'll notice that we are dipping into our fund balance, and that is shown by the black line. We get to a point where we are under the fund balance policy, so that's when we need to really get our expenditures back in line with our revenues, build back up that fund balance, and stay in line with it. So that's our presentation. We're happy to answer any questions.
Vice Mayor Kiwi.
Thank you so much. And we had some communication over the past week, but I just wanted to, I thought it was fascinating to look at the transit tax in the original ballot language and the improvements that were promised to our residents. And I think it's something we really need to consider when we're looking at our CIP plan every year, to look back to that language and make sure that we're achieving our goals in each of those areas. We have lots of ways of measuring our achievement, but we don't necessarily look back to what we promised in the transit tax. And of all these items, when you look at this, the ones that sort of jumped out at me was the shaded waiting areas with benches for passengers, that we're lagging a little bit in shade. We know shade is a transportation issue, and it's important that we not necessarily plant a tree, but build those structures. I know we're lagging a little bit in that, and we're looking at innovative ways to do that because it can be very costly. I know that some students at ASU are looking at this material that is used. It's made of recyclable plastic. It's made from plastic bottles. It's a material that comes is produced in the Southeast, and I think in Georgia, and it is sunproof material, so it has UVA protection. And I know some students, Eric, I think you were connected to them a few years ago, were looking at the possibility of doing one bus stop that had that material. But I just want to just emphasize that we should, of those areas, that lack of shade in our bus stops, and also our bike lanes. In the past couple of years, we really haven't increased our bike lanes very much. I think it's a product of the McClintock bike lane issue, and there's been a little sort of worry about adding more bike lanes into the city, but that is something we did promise the residents when we had that transit tax. So thank you so much for the presentation, and I hope we can include those elements when we look at our CIP next year.
Anybody else? Thank you very much. All right.
Thank you.
Next item is our Equal Rights Amendment Resolution. And this is something that Council Member or Vice Mayor Kuby brought up, and I fully support. If it's a pleasure of the council, if we could, let me get to my, what we're looking at is the Equal Rights Amendment Resolution. Nevada legislature became the first after expiration of established deadlines, and Illinois legislature followed on May 30th, 2018, becoming the 37th state to have ratified the Equal Rights Amendment Resolution. And I think by us urging our other states and our other cities to really sign on a resolution will help Arizona become an Equal Rights Amendment state to help add Arizona to that list. If it's okay with the council, if we could go ahead and add the Equal Rights Amendment Resolution to the next council meeting. Is there consensus, Vice Mayor Kuby?
Well, I want to thank Diane Post for sitting through this very long meeting.
Thank you,
your
Diane.
passion and expertise in this issue is unparalleled in the state. And I want to point out that similar resolutions have been passed by Sedona, Jerome, Clarkdale, Tolleson, Tucson, Miami, Quartzsite, and Springerville. So we see small towns, medium towns, large cities that are involved, and we could be the 38th state. I know there's still a question of whether Congress would consider that to be legal because the deadline is passed, but they could actually extend the deadline and say we have the approval of 38 and we could move on. So this is very exciting for a lot of us, men, women, anyone in the community. So thanks so much for bringing this forward.
And then I need a correction. It's not the next council meeting. It's going to be the 31st.
All right, yeah.
Of July.
I sent you another city today, Clifton.
Woohoo, Clifton.
Oh, good. All right. So there's consensus to move forward to add this to our July 31st council agenda with the resolution?
Yes.
Joel, you good? All right. Any future
I'm good,
agenda
Mayor.
items? Vice Mayor?
Yes, and is Rini here in the room? I don't mean to, all right, sorry to surprise you. We had talked about this issue a few times, but I'm hoping we could look at the possibility of family leave for our City of Tempe employees and trying to walk the talk of worker protection. Instead of starting a working group and probably delaying the process, I know there's ways that other cities are capturing that and doing it in a way that's very cost effective, that involves a partnership with the employees. And so if it's the will of the council, I would hope that in an IRS to be determined. I know we have a heavy schedule IRS presentations, but we look at the possibility of family leave policy, paid family leave policy for our employees.
Sounds good. Everybody okay with that? All right. With that, we're going to adjourn that portion of our meeting. We do have an executive meeting we have to go upstairs for, and then we're going to come back down. Or do you want to do it afterwards? Let's just do it afterwards. We can do it afterwards. All right. Next item on the agenda is a call to the audience for the committee of the whole items listed under section 5A. Audience members do have up to 3 minutes to address the city council. If you would like to speak to the council on the items listed on the committee of the whole, please get my attention or fill out your speaker's card, which can be found in the back of the room. Is there anyone in the audience wishing to address us on the committee of the whole items, which is items 5A1? And then we have also items in progress. Seeing none, close that portion. item 5A1, the Animal Welfare Laws Program. We're looking for council direction. I know that was Councilmember Keating's, but I'm going to have Vice Mayor Kuby.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you to Councilmember Keating for his leadership, and also Councilmember Adams, who is still on the phone, I believe. So one of the issues we've been tackling in our animal welfare group is how we respond to complaints from our residents about excessively barking dogs, and I am one who's guilty of this. I actually got a notice once, and it mortified me. But our current law requires that 3 neighbors from separate households sign a petition in order to open a complaint. We've also required that all 3 be available to appear in court should the complaint end up there and not be resolved, and they keep logs of dates and times of occurrences. So this is thought to be a little bit burdensome, and it's the opinion of the working group that we need to change and make some changes for a number of reasons. First, it can be difficult to get 3 neighbors to sign, and often the person that's most subject to the noise is on either side of the house, and not necessarily a third neighbor. And then many neighbors expressed concern about retaliation, and they wanted to remain anonymous, and so won't sign a petition. They're very bothered by it, but they won't necessarily sign a petition. And while we recognize the more witnesses willing to go to court and the more detailed their evidence, the better, we don't want to limit an individual from moving forward if they feel strongly that the barking is a nuisance. So we recommend decreasing the signature requirement to 2 neighbors, and to allow the individuals to move forward to court if they choose to. Logs would be recommended but not required. And we'd like the information to be shared with both the complainants and the dog owner about mediation services. And at the very outset of any complaint, let the resident who's being complained about know that there's services available, dog training. We could really engage with the residents to try and solve the problem. So thank you to Kristen Gwynn on her long-standing leadership on this issue. It's not as simple as you think. And she went to the Neighborhood Advisory Commission last week. They were overall in favor of the updates, but they were a little concerned about that complaints could be made too easily, that they could be used unfairly to target another neighbor. But we think we've maintained steps in a process that will make this unlikely. We also listed the proposal in the Tempe Forum for 2 weeks, and the responses are pretty much split down the middle. I want to point out that much of the people who were opposed to it were opposed because they don't think cities should be involved at all with dog complaints, and think it's unfair to really say anything about a dog barking. So we designed this to give neighbors some recourse when a dog is barking for hours at a time, which often at night, and when the dog is left outside for long periods of time. We know that of the more than 1,000 complaints that have been filed, the number that have made it to court is really in the single digits, and the working group feels that barriers in the current process might be responsible for that number being so small. So we ask you to consider these changes to our barking dog ordinance and to be able to vote on that at the next council meeting. I'm not quite sure if it's, I think it's probably July. Next one? Yes, with your approval, we will go forward with these changes and vote on them at the next council meeting 1 week from today.
Okay. Any comments from the council on this? Seeing none, is there agreement to go ahead and move this forward at the next council meeting for approval? Or
yes.
To move forward for us to approve or deny the proposed language change, ordinance change? There's consensus if we can move that forward? All right, thank you very much. Next item, we don't have any other new items for consideration. Any items in progress? Yes, Vice Mayor Kuby.
I'm like chatty Kathy today. Yes, an update on our TNR, Trap, Neuter, and Release program. So a few years ago, we had an agreement with the Animal Defense League of Arizona to help coordinate our TNR program. Props to Woods and Councilmember Granville for their leadership on that. And we were very concerned about the feral cat population. And we created a separate fund where money could be donated and tax-deductible contributions, if they come from a resident, that could cover TNR services at no cost to our Tempe residents. More recently, we've begun to hear from residents a lot of complaints about feral cats and conflicts between neighbors and disagreements on whether cats should be fed, if they should be fed in a timing, whether there should be a timing of that or they should be fed willy-nilly. Lots of disagreement and lots of rancor. So we've been in conversation with the Arizona Defense League Animal Defense League, and with Lost Our Home Pet Foundation, which is in Tempe, about developing a curriculum that will discuss best practices in managing local cat colonies, and that we could share that curriculum through a series of neighborhood meetings. And we'd like to launch a pilot program this summer to identify neighborhoods with the greatest need and hold these educational meetings and give people ideas of how to minimize the negative impacts of outdoor cats, and then schedule TNR services for an entire cat colony at a time. For example, if people are intent on feeding cats, we could encourage them to feed the cats at a regular time, and then we could schedule a TNR mobile van to come, and we know the cats will come at that certain time. It will be easier to capture the cats and neuter them. So we do have existing funds already from Jerry Brock. Thank you, Jerry, Tempe resident who donated to the city quite a number of dollars for TNR services. And we have some additional funding from ADLA that will cover the pilot, so we're not asking for any financial help today. And we also applied for a grant. Thank you so much to staff for applying to the Better Cities for Pets program as part of the U.S. Conference of Mayors. We're expecting to hear about that in the next week or two, and that would cover our ability to expand the pilot. And we do have a survey on the issue in Tempe Forum to identify the neighborhoods that have the greatest need. There's definitely some neighborhoods that have more complaints than others. We will continue that Tempe Forum for a number until the end of June, I believe, and then begin working with targeted neighborhoods in the summer. We hope to have a mobile program that will really respond to citizen need. So that's that. And then I have one more update on the Clean Air Working Group. So we've been working with the Bright Cities organization, and they're going to be in town meeting with staff and a few council members next week. And I'm delighted to say that Councilmember Chin is interested in joining the working group. So we have an opening on that. And I'm hoping council will approve the addition of Arlene Chin to our group. And we're very interested in meeting with Bright Cities and hearing about how we can participate in their grant program. So they're bringing us funding, they're bringing us programs that are going to really benefit the health of our little ones in our city.
Right.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, Jennifer.
Yes, thank you, Vice Mayor Kuby, for your comments about the feral cat. I too have gotten a lot of complaints about it, and I think that the approach that you're proposing is an excellent one and completely supportive of it. Second, about the county island, item number 9, just to give you a quick update on those. We are exploring various options for the county island and should know a lot more towards the end of July. I'm quite excited about the potential for a county island just north of the lake. And then for the desert conservation, item number 10, I'm happy about moving forward to establish a Desert Conservation Commission to improve our precious resources and work with our experts in the community. That's all.
Okay. All right, with that, we don't have any other comments. I do want to mention one thing, though. I want to wish everyone a happy 4th of July. There is a website, Tempe 4th, the number 4th.com. It's going to be exciting. 4th of July put on by the Kiwanis Club of Tempe. We hope to see you all there. Have a safe and happy 4th of July. And then our next meeting is June 20th, 27th. I was like, wait a minute. It's June 27th, 2019. With that, we are adjourned. Have a good evening.